There's no such thing as a painless lesson. They just don't exist. Sacrifices are necessary. You can't gain anything without losing something first. Although, if you can endure that pain and walk away from it, you'll now have a heart strong enough to overcome any obstacle. A heart made full metal. Hello everyone, this is Gene from NYC again, and I'm back with another video. This video is a bit spur of the moment, but I don't know, I wanted to make it. I make a lot of videos where I critique something or I criticize and I rant, and every once in a blue moon I like to make something positive because, I do, as much as I criticize video games or comics or this or that, they are mediums that I sincerely enjoy and care about, so every once in a while I like to make a video where I get back in touch with what made me love a certain artistic medium or a certain work or whatnot. So today I'm going to be touching upon video games, and in particular because there's way too many to put in a video. But I'm just going to ramble about the various life lessons, especially lessons regarding facing adversity, that whether or not I knew it growing up, I was learning as I played video games growing up. And just share those observations and lessons with you all if you are inclined to hear me out. And as always, thank you so much for leaving comment, liking, subscribing, even disagreeing with me at times. I don't mind disagreement. All I ask is that you not be a jerk about things. So long as you have something to say and it's, thought out. Even if you disagree with me, hell, I like it when people disagree with me because I get to learn something, even if I don't necessarily share the point of view. The only thing that I will actively go out to censor, I guess you could say, is if someone's being a jackass. But so long as you aren't being a jackass, I have no problem. So anyway, to the video itself. So actually, this is, as I said, very spur of the moment because I was actually watching a video about Vic Mignogna. He was actually in New York recently, which I did not know, because I sure as sin would have gone to see him if I had known. It's one of those things where I've been so wrapped up in my own personal life and my family obligations and the challenges with that I've sort of not really been keeping up with things. So it's one of those things where I learned too late that he had actually been here in the city a few days ago. I think like at the end of last week or something. So I missed out. Boo. But anyway, I was looking through the comments as I often do on videos, and someone quoted Fullmetal Alchemist. There's a quote. I forget who says it. It might be Ed or Al, but there's this quote at the end where, at the end of the story, I should say, at the end of Fullmetal Alchemist, where it talks about how there's no such thing as a painless lesson, and that if you're able to withstand the challenges and take the pain, basically, that what you end up with is a heart made of full metal, right, or a full metal heart, right? You end up hopefully, right? you end up on the other side better than you were previously. And that type of theme is even touched upon in things like the hero's journey, right? The larger book was the hero with 1,000 faces, right? Which is touching upon myths and things of that nature. And the whole idea is that you start out one way and then you go through all these different experiences and you meet up with all these challenges and you sort of come back to your starting point, but you're a different person. Hopefully, you are stronger. You are wiser, you are better equipped than you were when you first started out. So, although I'm talking about storytelling elements at this moment, looking back on it, I've been thinking about a lot about how the stuff that I grew up watching and engaging in, which was a lot of competitive things, right? I watched sports. I played sports when I was growing up. I was in the fencing. In my high school, we had a fencing gym class, and I took that gym class whenever I could. So I was fencing regularly. I was playing video games. I was competing in some way pretty regularly growing up, whether my opponent was another person, whether my opponent was the computer, whether my opponent ultimately was myself. And I was just thinking about how those experiences, although I didn't realize it at the time because, you're just living and you're just going through life and experiencing, but how those sort of molded me and the things that I grew up watching, seeing, embracing, playing, influenced a lot of my views, because I do think that a lot of what fuels this regressive, progressive ideology that seems to be permeating through everything is having had a lack of challenge and adversity in life. Now, not to say that I want people to suffer sincere, hardships. Of course, nobody wants to go through that, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone. I've been through way too much sincere hardship in just this year alone. I don't wish, tragedies or things like that on anybody, even my worst enemy, because I know all too well what that feels like. I'm not talking about things like that, although sadly those are going to be a part of life. But I mean things like, again, healthy adversity, healthy competition, something challenging you, something demanding that you improve, that you get better. As the classic gamer phrase goes, get good, scrub. So I have noticed, at least to me, I don't know everybody's individual story, but I think that a lot of this regressive, progressive propaganda stems from, at least in part, a lack of that challenge. Things like getting a participation trophy just for trying. And I want to be clear. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, encourage a person when they've tried but they failed. Of course, people need encouragement, but at the same time, as Yoda would say, do or do not. There is no try, right? In the end, a competition has your winner and then second and third place, which means you're two losers. As the song goes, actually, the song by Nelly, right? I am number one. 2 is not a winner, and 3 nobody remembers. So I was just thinking about how those type of lessons were instilled in me as a kid through the type of entertainment that I either participated in or watched, right? Whether it was pro wrestling or sports or playing video games or whatever it was. So I'm going to focus this mainly on video games, and maybe I'll do other videos about how other things like fencing or sports or pro wrestling or whatnot influenced me. But I've been rambling for almost 10 minutes now, so let me get to the point of it all, which is how video games, at least I believe, shaped me, or at least taught me some very important life lessons. So when I think of the video games I played growing up, I mainly played fighting games. We had a few non-fighting games, being that the first system that we ever had in my house was the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System. So we had the Super Mario 3-pack. So that was Super Mario Brothers, that was Duck Hunt, which was my favorite game. Of course, the one about hunting is my favorite game. And then we had International Track and Field. I liked that one too, but Duck Hunt was definitely my game. And, that was probably one of the, outside of, messing around with my brother and, the fighting that, naturally happens between siblings. that was probably the first taste of challenge that I ever got, because these games were not easy. And I think I was around, 4 years old when we got the NES, or at least that's what I remember. So these games weren't easy. To this day, I've never beat the original Super Mario Brothers, because I could never make that jump on like level, what was it, 8-1 or 8-3? There's this like ridiculous gap. And for the life of me, I could never make that gap. To this day, I don't play platform games, and that's why. It sticks with you. It sticks with you. But that was the first time that, I was engaged in something that consistently, gave me a challenge. And demanded that I, learn or find a way around this challenge. And then, of course, later on, when we got a Sega Genesis and we got Sonic the Hedgehog, it wasn't really my game. I've learned to appreciate Sonic for its music and its beautiful, lush graphics and colors and all that, but again, not my type of video game, though I greatly appreciate it for its artistic merits now, especially Sonic 2. That is gorgeous. The soundtrack, the graphics, that is gorgeous. But anyway, the games I fell in love with as I got older, around like 7, 8 years old, was Street Fighter 2. That is my heart, that is my soul. To me, Street Fighter 2 is the best game ever made, and you can't tell me different. That, for me, is the game of games. There is Street Fighter 2, and then there is everything else. But that was the first time I think I was consistently, being challenged and getting my butt kicked, because I wasn't very good at fighting games as a kid. I improved over the years, but I was never like a champion player or anything of that nature. But it challenged me. It demanded that I improve, because it gave me the option to play on 1 star, which I often did as a little kid, or play on 8 stars. But here was the thing. The game, although it gave you the option to play on any level that you wanted, from 1 to 8 stars, from easiest to hardest, it would not reward you with anything until you played on level 4, until you hit that middle ground. You could beat the game, and I did it hundreds of times growing up. You could beat the game on any level from 1 to 3. But at the end, you would just get a scoreboard, and then the game would just tell you to try to play on a more difficult level. What I like about that, looking back on it, is that it encouraged you to improve. It sort of dangled a carrot in front of you. It said, yeah, you did good here. This was all right, but imagine what you could do with level 4. Imagine what you could unlock. Right? You might get the endings, which was a big. It seems so silly now, right? But, back in the early 90s, where most home console video games were just ports of arcade games, that was a big deal, to unlock the ending of a game. It was like, especially in fighting games, it was like you unlock the ending, or you unlock the character, and you were like the man, or you were the girl. It was like, you did what? How did you do that? I remember people going crazy over like unlocking Reptile in the first Mortal Kombat game. And whenever someone did it, would be like, you lie, you didn't unlock Reptile, he's not real. Like, no, he's real. Here's how you do it. You have to fight on the pit, and there has to be the moon, and you have to do this, and you have to do that. There was a lot of crazy stuff back then, but my point in it is that it demanded that you improve. It said, I'm not going to reward you for being mediocre. I'm not going to reward you for low effort. You want this ending? Get good, scrub. It's basically what it was saying. And as I grew older and I wanted, right, to improve, and then of course there was my brother who the funny thing, he doesn't really like fighting games, but he has a natural affinity for them. But he doesn't really play them anymore. So here I was, the one struggling, and he was the one who always did everything better than I did when it came to that, at least. Got to level 8 first, beat the game at level 8 first, unlocked Ryu's hidden fireball attack, all that stuff. I think it was a glitch actually, but hidden to me. So, but anyway, I had all this motivation, right? Whether it was competition with my brother, or competition with the game, or just competition with the high score that I had set, that said, you could do better, you can improve, get to work. So in time I did, and then I eventually became decent enough at the game to unlock the endings for each character, and that wasn't easy because each character played differently. There are certain characters like Ryu, Ken, Vega, Guile that I played with decently enough, and then there were characters like Dalsim and Zangief that I was absolutely awful at. But if I wanted that ending, and I wanted that ending, I had to work for it. And the game, gave you plenty of chances, fortunately. Like, unlike in the arcades, we have to keep putting in money. But the game would, give you plenty of chances, and the only limit was your patience. And in time, I became good enough. I mean, it took many tries. I never had a perfect run, especially not as Zangief. Terrible, some big, slow characters. But in time, I was good enough to defeat those, get all those endings. I was well enough to play on level 4 fairly consistently with the characters that I was skilled with. And then eventually, moved up to level 8 and eventually unlocked those endings. One of my most cherished memories as a gamer is when I finally beat the game as Guile on level 8. Fighting Bison, I kept losing and I kept losing and I kept losing, but I was determined to win. It was like, I don't care if I spend the rest of my natural life. I must have been around maybe 7, 8 at the time. I don't know. But I was so determined to win that I was not going to give up. And dear God, was it frustrating to get your butt kicked every single time. And have to face Bison over and over and over again, and then to be so close. There were a few times where it's just a mistimed move or a double knockout or whatever it was, and it would just be right at the cusp, and then I would lose. But after trying and trying and trying and trying and trying and trying and trying, I think it was an hour plus. And I was determined because my brother was sitting next to me, watching me and cheering me on. And he offered several times, like, I could beat him. I'm like, no, I have my pride. I don't want to rely on you to win this fight for me. So, and I eventually won. I think it was dumb luck. But I won. And the thing I remember distinctly about that, right, as I won and I'm watching Guile's ending and, his wife tells him to, stop pursuing vengeance and all that stuff, is that I just broke down in tears. Not at the ending. I'd seen the ending plenty of times, it wasn't that. But I had accomplished this goal, which to my young mind at the time had just seemed absolutely impossible. This was something I had been trying for the longest, although it took me an hour and a half to actually do it. I had been, going for it and trying it several times. And it just went, I just kept getting beat and beat and beat and beat and beat and beat and beat, but I refused to give up. And eventually, again, maybe it was just a lucky shot, but I eventually won those 2 matches. I won those 2 out of 3 matches, and I got my victory. Video games taught me how to grind. Video games taught me to not give up, even when the goal seems insurmountable. I remember playing Metal Gear Solid. I have 2 examples from Metal Gear Solid. I remember playing Metal Gear Solid, and facing Sniper Wolf. In the first Metal Gear Solid game, you face her twice. Now, the first sniper battle is really bad. The second one is actually a little bit easier, in my opinion, because the circumstances are different. You're out in the field. You can use different weapons. You can use the missile launcher to basically send a homing missile and track her down. The second fight's a lot easier. But the first fight, oh my god. The first fight against Sniper Wolf in Metal Gear Solid, that is simply unfair. That is unfair. And that's the entire dang point of that level. It's supposed to give her the advantage. It's not supposed to be fair. She's the better sniper. Snake, constantly shakes because he's a terrible sniper. It's even explained in-game that it's just not a skill that he's terribly skilled at. You need to take diazepam to still his hands, and it always, fades too quickly. And then, of course, if you're playing on a harder level, if you're playing on hard, you don't get a lot of, diazepam pills. You get like 1 or 2, I think it is. And all this other stuff. And then the only way to, shoot at her is to lay, right in the middle of the sniper alley, so you're giving her a clear shot. And he does, and especially in the first Metal Gear Solid game, Snake doesn't have as many, I guess you could call them sniping stances, as Wolf does, right? Wolf can kneel, she can lay prone, she can stand. All Snake has is lying prone on the ground, right in the center of the sniper alley. That fight is designed to be unfair and to give Sniper Wolf a unfair advantage. But you still have to win. It doesn't matter that the boss fight is grossly unfair. The game doesn't say, hey, I'm going to make this fair for you. No, the game makes it hard. The only thing that the game gives you is a ration and maybe some bullets for the PSG-1 sniper rifle. There's so many times I played the game, I remember the sniper rifle. And that's it. That's it. Maybe you can call Colonel Campbell and get a little bit of advice, but that's about all. The game is not going to make this victory easy for you. And it wasn't, especially as the game got harder, as I played on more difficult levels. Beating Sniper Wolf was oftentimes a chance of luck. But I did it. I got past it. Then, of course, you do get captured, and then you meet the next challenge in the damn torture room sequence. But still, my point is that you were not going to move forward in this game unless you learned how to defeat this opponent. As I was saying, unlike in, say, a fighting game, right, where, everybody, granted, different characters have different fighting styles and they have their various strengths and weaknesses, but for example, in a fighting game, all the opponents are facing each other. Everybody has the same time limit. Everybody has the same health bar, right? Everything with the exception of perhaps special moves, right? And stuff like that, and the individual skill of the players, that's different. But everything else, like energy level, time, that's the same. That's not the case in a boss battle, like fighting Sniper Wolf in Metal Gear Solid, right? Snake is the poorer sniper overall. He has much less lifespan. He has much less provisions, and Sniper Wolf, again, everything is in her favor, from the design of the level to her individual skills to her life bar. It is unfair, and the game does not apologize one bit for sticking you into this unfair situation. And on top of that, it has the gall to demand that you win. You want to move on to the next sequence in the game? You better win this fight. And what that taught me about life is that life ain't fair. Life is not fair. It sucks. And of course, the unfairness of life is very different and much more painful in the real world than it is in a video game, because at least in a video game you get multiple chances. You don't always get multiple chances in real life, but still, it did teach me that life ain't fair. You still have to go out and pull the victory, right? You still have to go out and win, because if you don't, you can't move forward. That's something that I've been trying to remind myself of, given the multitude of challenges that I've been facing this year thus far, especially with illness in my family and being a caretaker and all that, which is not easy. I'm not saying that I approach this perfectly. I don't approach this type of thing at all the way I would like to. But I think that's also part of the reason why I'm making this video, to remind myself of the resiliency that I need to have if I'm going to come out of all this insanity on the other side better than I was when it started. But anyway, so eventually, I found a way to win. You have to pick your spots. You have to watch patterns, and with no small string of luck. But I eventually won. And then you get captured, but still, eventually I won. So what it taught me is that you can overcome a disadvantaged situation. Not easy. It's by no means easy. But if you persist and you make a plan and you just keep trying, you can do it. You may not know when you're going to win, but at some point, if you continue, you'll win again. And I don't say this saying that I always, follow this advice or that it's easy in real life. It's not at all. I understand that a video game and reality are different, but still, we can learn from these type of things. We can learn from this and try to apply the lessons to our real life, even if we don't apply them perfectly. Better to apply it imperfectly, in my opinion, than to not apply it at all. And then there's the second. There was Metal Gear Solid 2. And what I remember about that is that I eventually became skilled enough to play the game on hard. And one of the earliest boss battles is with Olga, who's sort of like the stand-in for Meryl in that game. And oh my god, that battle with her is so dang difficult. It is so difficult. It's difficult on like normal. It's even worse on hard. I think I had to try like 15 times. I remember 15 tries. Maybe it was more. Maybe it was. I remember 15 tries. I have to ask my brother, but I remember 15 tries. Even having like the unlimited ammo cheat going. I never said I always fought fair. And yet still I just kept getting my butt kicked. And again, it was one of those things where, the level is designed to benefit her. Right? Especially those damn floodlights blinding you. You try to shoot them out and then somehow they come back on. God, that fight was annoying. But again, it taught me resiliency. And I've been really needing to rely on those lessons through a lot of what I've been going through in my personal life, in my real life recently. So I guess that's the biggest thing that I learned from video games. And of course if I wanted to spend an hour, I could easily spend an hour. It's almost 30 minutes at this point. But I could easily spend an hour talking about all the different games I've played and the various life lessons I learned. But I just want to focus on those examples and just reiterate that I think the biggest lesson I took in general from growing up playing video games is the grind, right? It's not just in RPGs, but it's the grind, and how the grind teaches you resiliency, and how the grind does improve you. It improves your skills, it improves your patience, it improves your ability to problem solve. And I think that's something that is sort of dying off, at least in some video games. Not all, naturally. And I can't even comment for most games because I haven't played a modern game in God knows when. But from the reviews I read, and when you have things like a few months ago, the whole thing about Sekiro and should it have an easy mode. See, it's stuff like this, it's experiences like this why I say no to things like making a game easy. I'm perfectly fine with, difficulty levels. And I do think that, again, a game should not be broken. Right? It shouldn't be obscenely difficult, even at its hardest levels, right? It should be hard, but you should be able to devise a way to defeat it. And the game should be so interesting that it's one of those things where you lose, and the loss, instead of breaking your spirit, kind of angers you a little bit, and you're like, you stupid game, wait till my thumbs feel better. I'm gonna come back and kick your that type of response where you just want to get back and try it again as soon as possible. So I'm certainly not calling for obscenely difficult or badly designed games, but I do believe that video games should be challenging, and that challenge should help the player grow and improve. It should teach them that the grind is something that sucks. I'm not going to say the grind is easy. It can be incredibly frustrating. I remember playing Final Fantasy VII, and there's just some points you just have to grind and grind and grind and grind and grind, because you can't move forward until you're strong enough to take on the new enemies in the whatever part of the game you have to go to move forward in the story. So you're stuck in some random forest fighting a bunch of low-level monsters until you're strong enough to move forward. But you should be getting stronger. You should be getting better. Grind without purpose, grind without improvement is just a waste of time, in my opinion. It's running around. It's running on a hamster wheel. Right? You're not going anywhere. So those are just a small sample of my thoughts. So in short, playing video games taught me the benefit of hard work and of perseverance and patience, and taught me to grow and to improve in my skills. And that not all adversity is bad. There is adversity that is designed, there is challenge that is designed to improve you. And that, I think, is something that we need more of in life. And certainly that the progressives need more in their lives. Because from what I've seen of reviews and, reviews of certain video games or controversies over certain video games, it seems to be that there's this moving away from providing challenge. Everything should just be given to you, right? The win should be given to you. You shouldn't have to work or to strive for your victory. You shouldn't have to earn your victory. And as much as the grind and competition can be flat out annoying, I cannot get behind the idea of just being handed a win. Perhaps it's my competitive spirit, perhaps it's my pride, but I'd much rather get my butt kicked 9 times and pull out a win in the 10th and at least have an honest victory and learn from those 9 losses than to win 9 times just because, somebody let me win. I don't want anybody to let me win. I don't want anybody to let me win, and I don't let others win. If you defeat me in something, then you've beaten me, by your own merits. Or dumb luck at times. But more often than not, it's on your own merits. And if I win, it's on my own merits. I will not take a false victory, and I will not give anybody a false victory. So, again, maybe it's just the competitor in me that just has too much pride, but that's the way I feel. So that's it. I've rambled on much too long. So let me know what you think. Let me know if there's anything that you learned from playing video games or engaging in other medium. I'll probably do videos similar to this about comics or TV shows, or the example of certain characters and what I learned from them. But for right now, I just wanted to talk about what I've learned from video games. So I will see you in the next video, and have a good day, and I'll see you all around. Bye.